My boyfriend Jake was a billionaire trust fund heir who never spent a single penny on me during our 7 years together. His excuse? He was testing my intentions. Even for condoms, the man would Venmo request me for half. Classy, right? When my mum needed emergency surgery, I was $2,000 short, despite borrowing from everyone I could. That night, I went to Jake, my last resort. No matter how much I begged, cried, or pleaded, even when I literally got down on my knees, he refused to help. He just stared at me with that smug, detached look, like watching me suffer was entertainment. A week later, I buried my mother alone, and while sorting through Jake's things, I stumbled across a gift list he'd made for Madison. The girl next door, a Hamptons beach house, Hermes bags, Tiffany diamonds, millions in gifts. Then I overheard him laughing on the phone. On her knees for $2,000. Madison was right. She's a total gold digger. His laughter echoed in my ears long after he hung up. That sound was the final crack in something that had been dying for years. Because from the moment my mother died, I had already decided I was leaving him forever. I'd barely put the list back when the door swung open. Jake stumbled in, reeking of expensive bourbon, his face red and eyes glassy. He dropped onto the couch beside me, grinning lazily. Disappeared for a few days, huh? Thought maybe you'd grown a backbone. He smirked, leaning back. But I knew you just can't stay away from me, right, babe? What he really meant was, you're back to beg for more money. Because in his head, that was all I ever wanted. I didn't even bother looking up. I just shifted away as he reached for me, his hand freezing midair when I dodged it. He looked at his rejected hand, then back at me, clearly assuming I was just sulking about the $2,000. I've had a few drinks, he said, slurring slightly. Go make me some of that hangover soup. There it was, the tone. The entitled, lazy trust fund brat snapping his fingers at the help. But 7 years ago, he hadn't been this person. Back then, he'd put on an act, pretending to be a humble, struggling guy, just trying to make it. He'd looked me in the eyes and said, Emma, I don't have much to offer, but we can work hard together and build a good life. And I'd believed him. Yes, I needed stability, but I was willing to work for it. I chose Jake because I believed in that dream. But the longer we were together, the more I realized he wasn't normal. He'd wrinkle his nose at anything cheap, and he'd constantly ask me to do things he could easily do himself. One afternoon, while I was working my cafe shift, I saw him step out of a Maserati, laughing with a group of rich boys as they entered an exclusive club. That's when I knew our relationship had been built entirely on lies, and he'd always been terrified that I might want a piece of his wealth. Jake interrupted my thoughts again. If you needed cash, you could have just asked directly, instead of using your sick mom as a prop. He laughed bitterly. That's some bad karma, you know. His words were so absurd I almost laughed. I looked at him, my voice steady but cold. If I had just asked directly, would you have given it to me? He froze, just for a moment. Then, as if to protect his ego, he sneered again. Madison was right all along. You stayed with me all this time for money. Then he pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, and sent me a Venmo payment, 1.88. The note read, Gold Digger, 7 years. 7 years where I'd never spent a dime of his money. I'd bought him gifts, paid half the rent, worked overtime so we could have some kind of life together. And he had the audacity to call me that. I thought about the list for Madison. I thought about my mother dying in pain because I couldn't get the money in time. and I realized I couldn't stand to breathe the same air as him for another second. Just as I stood to leave, the front door opened again. Madison stepped inside, her perfume entering the room before she did. She froze when she saw me, quickly pulling her coat back over her revealing dress. "Oh, Emma, you're here," she stammered. I ignored her fake surprise and turned to Jake. "This is our apartment, right? You're giving out the door code now." Madison put on her sweetest, fakest voice. "Jake, how could I be random people? I just forgot my house key and needed a place to crash." Then, shooting me a pointed look, she added, "Besides, if Jake wasn't splitting rent with you, you'd be paying full price. You're the one getting the sweet deal." Her words dripped with poison, and Jake drank every drop. He nodded, dead serious. "Madison's right. Splitting rent with you is basically charity." He smirked. "How's that different from paying for sex?" Then he shoved his Venmo QR code in my face. "You don't want people calling you a gold digger? Fine. Pay me back all the rent I covered for the past 7 years. We'd moved into that 450 square foot apartment when we first started dating. Back then, I was fresh out of college, working 2 jobs, just to stay afloat. Jake had complained my studio was too far out, too small, not fit for human habitation. He was the one who pushed to move somewhere better. So I took on the extra cost, picked up another shift, worked harder, and now here he was, calling it charity, calling me a prostitute. "Jake," I asked, my voice trembling, "what exactly have I been to you these past 7 years?" The tears that slipped down my cheeks weren't for him. They were for me, for the girl who had wasted 7 years of her life loving someone so small. Jake hesitated. His hand, still extended toward me, trembled slightly. Then he looked at Madison, who smirked. "You totally are after his money," she said, tilting her head. "Without Jake, you'd never afford a place like this. Maybe sign an IOU, yeah? If assault weren't illegal." I'd have wiped that smug look off her face. Instead, I straightened up. "I'm not signing anything. You want money? Sue me." Then I turned toward the door. "Madison, since you're staying here, make sure you pay rent," I added coldly. "Otherwise, you're a gold digger too." Jake grabbed my arm. "Emma, come on. We were joking." Then he lowered his voice. "Think carefully before you walk out. You'll never afford this lifestyle again." That was the moment I realized how far gone I'd been. "Jake," I said softly, "I want to break up." The color drained from his face. "You're serious? You think you can just dump me?" I didn't answer. I just turned and packed my things. 30 seconds later, I heard him shout, "Emma Johnson, don't come crawling back." I didn't look back, not once. That night, I wandered through the city with 2 suitcases and nowhere to go. No home, no mother, no love left to salvage. I spent the night in a hospital lobby. Ironic, considering how many nights I'd spent begging for hospital bills. The next morning, I went to work and handed in my resignation. The HR manager blinked. "Quitting? Did Mr. Parker approve this?" He frowned. "If you leave now, your bonus will be minimal. We'll just deposit everything into one of your cards." I froze. "One of my cards?" He looked confused. "Aren't you and Mr. Parker dating?" He told finance to split your pay. Base salary to one account, bonuses to another. Said you were saving. My stomach dropped. So that's why I never saw my raises. Why I was always broke. I ran to the finance office and checked my records. There it was, a $2,000 bonus, the exact amount I'd needed for my mother's surgery. That money would have saved her life. Jake hadn't just been stingy. He'd stolen from me, hundreds of thousands siphoned off into another account, all while calling me a gold digger. I was shaking when he showed up later, Madison on his arm. "Emma," he said casually, "you run away, quit your job. You're really getting too full of yourself." Madison gave a fake pout. "Emma, don't be ungrateful. Without Jake, could you even survive here?" I looked at the two of them, rich, spoiled, and completely rotten, and laughed bitterly, because for the first time in 7 years, I wasn't scared anymore. Jake always thought money was power, that the one who has it owns the story. But when you've hit rock bottom, when you've been humiliated, heartbroken, and robbed of everything, you stop fearing power. You start building it. That morning, after facing HR, I walked out of that office with nothing but my resignation letter and a file full of pay records that proved Jake had been funneling my money for years. I didn't cry. Not this time. The tears had dried up long before. The streets of DC felt different that day. Cold, yes, but also clear. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't walking in Jake's shadow. I was walking towards something of my own. I spent the next few days sleeping in cheap motels, surviving on instant noodles, and applying for jobs online. Every rejection email stung, but each one hardened me a little more. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call. It was from Mr. Parker himself, the CEO of the company I'd just quit. "Emma," he said in a measured tone, "I heard you resigned. I'd like to know why." At first I froze. I'd always assumed he barely knew I existed. When I explained what happened, how Jake, his so-called intern, had diverted my pay and lied about our relationship, there was a long, dangerous silence on the line. Then Parker said, "Meet me tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., my office." When I walked in, Parker didn't waste time with pleasantries. He looked at the documents I'd printed. Bank statements, diverted transfers, fake accounts. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, but sharp as glass. Jake used our company payroll system to reroute employee funds. That's embezzlement. The word hung in the air. For the first time, someone powerful was on my side. He leaned back in his chair. "Emma, you've got talent and more backbone than most people I know. If you're willing to stay, I'll promote you. Double your salary. But I want every detail you have." I nodded, not just because of the offer, but because this was my chance to destroy Jake properly. The next few months were brutal. I worked like my life depended on it. Late nights, early mornings, coffee instead of sleep. But it paid off. Within 6 months, I'd gone from overworked assistant to director of operations at Parker Industries. I oversaw the accounts division, the same system Jake had used to steal from me, and through that, I learned everything about how the rich move their money, hide it, and grow it. Knowledge. That's the real gold. And I was about to mine it. While I rebuilt my life, Jake's was starting to crack. Madison had posted photos of their new life together on social media. Lavish parties, designer gifts, yacht trips. But I recognized the desperate tone behind the perfection. Their circle was gossiping. Apparently, Jake's trust fund had strings attached. His father had caught wind of the account irregularities at Parker Industries and cut him off temporarily. He'd gone from Maseratis to borrowing Madison's car, from champagne to cheap whiskey. Oh, how the mighty fall. Then one Friday evening, I got a message from an unknown number. "Emma, can we talk? I think I made a mistake. Jake." For a second, I just stared at the text, feeling nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, just silence. Then I typed back one word, sure. He showed up looking rough. Unshaven, wrinkled suit, eyes bloodshot. The same man who once said I couldn't survive without him now looked like he hadn't survived a single sober day since I left. Emma, listen, he started, his voice trembling with fake sincerity. I know I messed up. I shouldn't have let Madison get in my head. I love you. I tilted my head slightly, watching him squirm. You love me, I said quietly. Or you just miss the woman who paid half your rent and boosted your ego. He flinched. I'm serious, he said, reaching for my hand. I've lost everything. Madison's gone. My dad's furious. I cut him off. Your dad's furious because you got caught stealing company funds. That's not love, Jake. That's karma. His face went pale. You told him? I smiled faintly. No, Jake. You did that all by yourself. I just told the truth. He stood there, speechless, his mouth opening and closing like he could undo years of cruelty with one apology. But I wasn't the same woman who begged for $2,000. I'm done playing small, I said. You wanted to test me all those years? Congratulations. I passed. Then I turned and walked away. Within a year, I'd launched my own company, Aurora Consulting, specializing in financial recovery for women who'd been manipulated, cheated, or stolen from. Every client who came to me had a story like mine, and every success added another brick to the empire I was quietly building. They called me the Gold Maker because I didn't just survive betrayal, I profited from it. Meanwhile, Jake's name became synonymous with scandal. His trust fund was frozen, his reputation shredded, and Madison, she ran off with one of his old friends. He tried reaching out again once, sent an email begging for just one chance to talk. I didn't reply, but I did wire him $1.80 with a note that said, consider it even. Success doesn't come quietly. It comes knocking like thunder. And when it finally arrived for me, it shook the same city that once spat me out 6 months after walking away from everything. My company, Aurora Consulting, wasn't just surviving. It was exploding. We were signing contracts faster than I could read them. My inbox looked like a Wall Street ticker. And every time I saw my company's name on a press release or LinkedIn post, I felt that burn inside me soften. Not disappear, but transform into something cleaner, sharper. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. People who'd once ignored my emails were now begging to collaborate. VCs who'd laughed at my first pitch now wanted to grab coffee to discuss synergies. It was poetic. The same voices that had once told me I was too emotional to lead were now calling me visionary. But deep down, there was one voice I hadn't silenced yet. Jake's. I first saw him again at a tech summit in New York. I'd been invited as a panelist. Women transforming business in a post-recession era. He was there, too, sitting in the audience, next to his father, the man who'd once called me a gold digger. I almost didn't recognize him. His hair was shorter, his suit sharper, but the arrogance, that was the same. He was clapping politely for me as I took the stage, like I was some stranger who'd earned his approval. I didn't flinch. I smiled, adjusted the mic, and began my talk. When people underestimate you, don't argue, don't explain, don't prove, just build. Because one day, your work will speak louder than every insult you ever swallowed. The audience clapped. Cameras flashed, and for the first time I saw Jake's smile falter. After the event, he approached me, hesitant, almost nervous. "Emma," he said softly, "you look amazing. I've been following your company. You've really built something special." "Thank you," I said, my tone even, professional. "We try." He laughed awkwardly. "I guess I was wrong about you." "You were wrong about a lot of things," I said, looking him right in the eye. He didn't reply. He just nodded, pretending to take it gracefully. But I saw it. That flash of regret. That flicker of shame behind his confident mask. A week later, his company, the one he'd built with his father's money, reached out to mine. They wanted partnership, some twisted irony of fate. The universe handing me the microphone and saying, "Your turn." I accepted the meeting. When he and his father walked into my office, I greeted them with the same calm confidence they'd once stripped from me. We sat across a long glass table, them on one side, me on the other. "Let's get straight to the point," I said. "What exactly are you looking for?" His father leaned forward. "We've been impressed by your platform's growth. We think there's potential for synergy between your data solutions and our client base. In plain English, they needed me. Their company was bleeding clients. They were desperate for innovation. And for the first time, I was the one in control. I didn't reject them. Not immediately. That would have been too easy, too emotional. Instead, I listened, nodded, took notes, asked questions. I made them believe I was interested. Over the next month, I led them through a maze of business talks, demos, consultations, strategy calls. They shared everything: weaknesses, client data, projections. They trusted me, like I was their savior. And I played the part perfectly. Behind the scenes, my team and I built a separate product line, one designed to outperform theirs in every measurable way. We launched it quietly, strategically, right as they began publicly hinting at a potential partnership. The market noticed. Their stock dipped. Ours soared. And within a week, every investor who'd once backed them shifted their attention to Aurora. Jake's father called me personally. "I don't understand what's happening," he said, his voice tight. "We thought we had an understanding." "We did," I said. "You underestimated me again." A month later, their company filed for restructuring, and just like that, the empire that once looked down on me crumbled from the inside. Did I feel bad? A little. I'm human. But not enough to stop smiling when the news broke. Still, something inside me felt unfinished. Because revenge is a tricky thing. You think it's about payback, but it's really about release. And I wasn't free yet. A few weeks later, I got a message from Jake. "I'm sorry for everything. I know it's late. I just wanted you to know I've lost a lot, and I deserved it. But I'm proud of you. Always was." I read it 3 times. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part, the old me, wanted to scream at him, to ask why now. But instead, I did something I didn't expect. I replied, "Thank you. I hope you learn from it." I did. That was it. No long speeches. No dramatic closure, just honesty. The kind that doesn't need to shout. Then I deleted his number for good. Weeks turned into months, and Aurora kept growing. We opened offices in San Francisco, then London. Our name was everywhere. Forbes, Bloomberg, even the late-night talk shows. But my favorite headline came from a small business journal that had followed my story since day one. from gold digger to gold maker, the woman who built empires from betrayal. When I read that, I laughed. Because they were right, I didn't dig for gold. I became it. One night I found myself alone in the office again. The city glowing beneath the glass walls. The skyline shimmered like a reward, but I knew it wasn't the money, or the fame, or the revenge that made me feel whole. It was the peace, the quiet knowledge that I didn't need validation from anyone, that I had faced every storm and come out shining, not in spite of it, but because of it. I poured myself a drink, walked to the balcony, and whispered to the night, "This one's for her, the girl who thought she wasn't enough, because she was. She always had been." Now, when I tell this story to entrepreneurs, to women finding their voice, to anyone rebuilding from ashes, I don't talk about Jake. He's just a footnote. I talk about rebirth, about taking every insult, every heartbreak, every door slammed in your face, and building a kingdom with the bricks they threw. Because the best revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't. And as I close my laptop each night, I still catch my reflection in the window. Older, wiser, unshaken. The same girl they called a gold digger. But now the gold is mine.